What if someone could predict hundreds of unlikely events that all came true in one person's life? That's what the Bible claims about Jesus of Nazareth, and it's what many have found convincing, even skeptics. Famous agnostic Bertrand Russell once said he might believe in a superhuman intelligence if a voice from the sky predicted everything that would happen to him over 24 hours, especially improbable events, and then all of them came true. Christian philosopher Norman Geisler responded to this by saying, "Mr. Russell, there has been a voice from heaven. It did predict many things, and we've seen them undeniably come to pass." Geisler was pointing to the messianic prophecies in the Old Testament, statements made hundreds of years before Jesus' birth, foretelling the coming of the Messiah. These weren't vague or symbolic. They included specific details about the Messiah's birth, life, death, and resurrection. Bible scholar Barton Payne listed 191 such prophecies. Alfred Edersheim, an Oxford scholar, noted around 400. He emphasized that these were not scattered predictions, but part of one unified prophetic picture pointing to the Messiah. And these were not written after the fact. Even the most skeptical scholars agree the Old Testament books were completed centuries before Jesus lived. One striking passage is Isaiah 53, written roughly 700 years before Jesus. In verses 2 through 12 elements of Jesus' suffering and death are described in detail. He would be rejected, live a sorrowful life, suffer, be pierced for our sins, and even pray for others. Historically, some Jewish interpretations did see this chapter as referring to the Messiah. Only later, after Christians began using it to point to Jesus, did many rabbis shift to saying it referred to Israel. Other fulfilled prophecies include that the Messiah would be born of a woman, Genesis 3 verse 15, a virgin, Isaiah 7 verse 14, from Abraham's line, Genesis 12 verses 1-3, of the tribe of Judah, Genesis 49 verse 10, of David's house, 2 Samuel 7 verses 12-16, born in Bethlehem, Micah 5 verse 2, and heralded by a messenger, Isaiah 40 verse 3. He would cleanse the temple, Malachi 3 verse 1, be rejected, Psalm 118 verse 22, pierced in his hands and feet, Psalm 22 verse 16, pierced in his side, Zechariah 12 verse 10, rise from the dead, Psalm 16 verse 10, ascend into heaven, Psalm 68 verse 18, and sit at God's right hand, Psalm 110 verse 1. Some say Jesus fulfilled these prophecies by accident. But mathematician Peter Stoner calculated the odds of just 8 of these coming true in one person by chance, about 1 in 100 million billion. That's like covering every inch of dry land on Earth with tiles and randomly choosing the one marked square on the first try. Others say Jesus could have tried to fulfill the prophecies on purpose, but he couldn't control many of them: his birthplace, ancestry, how much he'd be betrayed for, or how Roman soldiers treated him during his crucifixion. Another objection is that gospel writers might have made up details to match the prophecies, but if they had, eyewitnesses would have called them out. Early Christians died for these claims, something they wouldn't do if they knew they were false. Some critics also argue that the Gospels misused Old Testament verses, like Hosea's statement, "Out of Egypt I called my son," in Matthew 2 verse 15. But scholars explain this as a typological or double reference prophecy, where an Old Testament event symbolically foreshadows something about the Messiah. Compared to biblical prophecy, predictions by psychics like Nostradamus or Jean Dixon are often vague or wrong. In fact, 92% of predictions studied from major psychics turned out to be false. In contrast, Jesus' fulfillment of so many specific ancient prophecies is still one of the strongest reasons many believe he is the promised Messiah. Even some, like Dr. Peter Greenspan, a Jewish doctor, came to faith in Jesus by reading the arguments of those who tried to disprove him.